She could outrun any man alive, and she made the men who wanted to marry her stake their lives on a race they could not win. Her name was Atalanta, and she is one of the few heroines in all of Greek myth who refused, completely and fiercely, to live the life that was expected of a woman in her world. She was a hunter as great as any man, a warrior, a champion, and she had no wish to marry at all. So when she was pressed to take a husband, she set a deadly condition. She would marry only the man who could beat her in a foot race, and any man who raced her and lost would die for it. Many tried. Many died. And it took a clever trick and 3 golden apples to finally catch the fastest woman in the world. How was the unbeatable Atalanta finally beaten, and was it truly a victory or the beginning of her undoing? That is the question at the heart of this story. So tonight, you'll hear the real tale of Atalanta, the unwanted daughter, the peerless huntress, the deadly race, and the 3 golden apples that changed everything. If you enjoy these stories, take a moment to subscribe. It genuinely keeps this channel alive, and tell me in the comments which myth you'd like next. Now settle in, and let's meet the woman no man could outrun. Atalanta's life began with a rejection. Her father, a king, had wanted a son, and when his wife bore a daughter instead, he was so disappointed that he ordered the infant taken away and left to die, exposed on a wild mountainside. It was a brutal beginning, the kind that should have ended the story before it began. But the baby did not die. According to the old tales, a she-bear found the abandoned infant and, instead of devouring her, took her in and suckled her, raising the child as one of her own cubs in the wilderness. In time, a band of hunters found the girl living wild in the forest, and they took her in and raised her among themselves. And so Atalanta grew up in the wild, nursed by a bear and reared by hunters, far from the world of palaces and women's quarters that she had been born into. It was the making of her. She grew into a young woman of extraordinary strength, speed, and skill, a hunter the equal of any man, swift of foot, deadly with a bow, utterly at home in the forests and the mountains. She wanted nothing to do with the ordinary life of a woman of her time. She had been thrown away as a baby and had survived by her own strength, and she intended to live free, on her own terms, beholden to no one. Atalanta's fame as a huntress grew until it reached across all of Greece, and it was put to the test in one of the great adventures of the age, the hunt for the Caledonian boar. The region of Caledon had been ravaged by an enormous wild boar, a monstrous beast sent by the goddess Artemis to punish a king who had neglected her, a creature so huge and so savage that no single hunter could bring it down. And so the greatest heroes of Greece were gathered together for a mighty hunt to destroy it. Atalanta came to join them, and her presence caused an uproar. Some of the men were outraged that a woman would presume to hunt alongside them and refused to take part if she did. But Atalanta ignored them and joined the hunt anyway. And when the great boar was finally cornered and the heroes closed in, it was Atalanta who struck the first successful blow. Her arrow was the first to wound the beast, drawing first blood before any of the famous men could. The boar was killed, and by the rules of the hunt, the honor of first blood belonged to Atalanta. It was a triumph and a vindication. The woman the men had scorned had outdone them all. Her reputation was now greater than ever. And that fame brought with it exactly the thing she least wanted, the attention of men who wished to marry her. By now, Atalanta was famous and admired, and suitors began to press her to marry. But Atalanta had no desire for marriage, and she had a powerful reason beyond her own wishes. She had consulted an oracle, and the oracle had given her a warning. Marriage would be her ruin. "Do not take a husband," the prophecy told her, "for if you marry, you will lose yourself, some disaster will come of it." Whether she believed the oracle or simply used it to justify the life she already wanted, Atalanta resolved never to marry. But the suitors would not give up, and her father, the very man who had once thrown her away as an infant, and who had since taken her back now that she was famous, wanted her wed. So Atalanta devised a way to keep her freedom while seeming to give the suitors a chance. she announced her terms. She would marry, she declared, but only a man who could beat her in a foot race. Any suitor who wished to win her must race against her, and if he won, she would be his wife. But if he lost, he would forfeit his life. It was a brutal condition, and a clever one, because Atalanta was the fastest runner in all of Greece, and she was certain that no man could ever beat her. She was offering the suitors a contest she knew they could not win, and so the races began. One by one, suitors came forward, dazzled by Atalanta's beauty and fame, each convinced that he would be the one to beat her. And one by one, they failed. Atalanta was simply faster than any of them, so much faster that, in some versions of the story, she would give her opponent a head start and still overtake him before the finish, running him down with ease. And when a suitor lost, the terrible price was paid. He forfeited his life, exactly as she had warned. The losers piled up, race after race, young men who had gambled everything on the chance of winning her and lost. It was a grim spectacle, and you might think it would have deterred anyone from trying. But there is a particular kind of man who cannot resist a beautiful and impossible challenge, and they kept coming, kept racing, kept dying. Atalanta remained unbeaten and unmarried, her freedom secure behind the wall of her own swiftness. It seemed it would go on this way forever. No man alive could outrun her, and so no man could ever claim her. But then a young man named Hippomenes came to watch the races. And, unlike all the others, he did not begin by being sure he could win. He began by falling helplessly in love and by realizing that he would need far more than speed to survive. Hippomenes had come to the races, at first only to scoff, to laugh at the foolish men who would risk their lives for a woman. But then he saw Atalanta run, and everything changed. He fell deeply, hopelessly in love with her, and he knew at once that he could never live without trying to win her. But he also knew that he could never beat her in a fair race. No man could. He had watched them all die. He needed help, and he knew exactly where to seek it. Hippomenes prayed to Aphrodite, the goddess of love, for this was her domain, and a man in love is her natural servant. He begged the goddess to help him win Atalanta, or to help him die in the attempt. And Aphrodite, who delighted in matters of the heart, took pity on the young man and decided to help him. She gave him a gift, 3 golden apples, perfect and gleaming, of irresistible beauty. Apples from a sacred garden, the kind of objects that no one who saw them could fail to want. And she told him how to use them. The apples would not make Hippomenes faster, but they might, if he was clever and brave, make Atalanta slower at exactly the right moments. Armed with the 3 golden apples and the favor of the goddess of love, Hippomenes went to challenge Atalanta to the race of his life. The day of the race came, and the two of them set off down the long track with Hippomenes' life on the line. Atalanta, as always, was swift as the wind, and almost at once she began to pull ahead. But Hippomenes had his plan. As she drew level and started to overtake him, he reached into his garment and rolled the first of the golden apples across the track in front of her. Atalanta saw it gleaming there, impossibly beautiful, and could not resist. She darted aside to snatch it up, losing a few precious moments, and Hippomenes pulled ahead. But Atalanta was so fast that she soon made up the ground and began to pass him again. So he threw the second apple a little further to the side this time, and again she could not help herself. Again she swerved to seize it, and again she lost ground. The finish line was coming closer now, and Atalanta, even with her 2 stops, was once more catching up and starting to pull away. Hippomenes had 1 apple left, and everything depended on it. He hurled the 3rd golden apple as far to the side as he could, off the track and into the rough ground. Atalanta hesitated and then went for it, and that final detour was just enough. While she chased the 3rd apple, Hippomenes drove forward with the last of his strength and crossed the finish line first. He had won. He had beaten the unbeatable Atalanta, not with speed, but with cleverness and 3 golden apples. And so Atalanta, beaten at last, became the wife of Hippomenes. In some tellings, she was not even sorry to have lost, that a part of her had wanted to be caught by a man clever and bold enough to find a way. For a while, the two of them were happy. But the oracle that had warned Atalanta against marriage had not been wrong, and the story does not end on the wedding. The downfall came through the gods. Hippomenes, in his joy at winning Atalanta, forgot to give proper thanks to Aphrodite, the goddess who had handed him the victory, and the gods do not forgive being forgotten. To punish his ingratitude, Aphrodite filled the couple with a sudden overwhelming passion at a forbidden moment, causing them to lie together within the sacred precinct of a great temple, a serious act of disrespect to the deity of that holy place. The offended god answered swiftly. As punishment for defiling the sacred ground, the two of them were transformed into lions, condemned to roam the wild as beasts, drawing the chariot of a goddess, never again to live as the man and woman they had been. The huntress who had been raised by a bear, who had run faster than any man and drawn first blood on the great boar, ended her human story as a lion in the wilderness, the oracle's warning fulfilled at last. Marriage had indeed undone her, exactly as the prophecy had foretold. It is tempting to feel that Atalanta was cheated, and in a way she was. She had built her whole life around her freedom and her swiftness, had kept every suitor at bay behind a contest she could not lose, and in the end she was beaten not by a faster runner, but by a trick, 3 shining apples that played on a moment's temptation. And then, married against the warning of the oracle, she lost even her human shape. But there is another way to see her story, and it may be the truer one. In a world that had thrown her away at birth for the crime of being a girl, Atalanta made herself into a legend by sheer strength and will. She hunted with the greatest heroes of Greece and outdid them. She drew first blood on a monster the men could not bring down. She ran faster than any man alive and lived for years entirely on her own terms, refusing the narrow life that everyone expected of her. That she was finally caught does not erase any of that, and the gods, in the end, made her into a lion, the proudest and wildest of beasts, which is perhaps a fitting shape for a woman who was never truly tame. We remember her not as a wife, but as the runner, the huntress, the one no man could catch on a fair track. And there is something worth holding on to in that. If this is the kind of story you want more of, take a moment to subscribe and tell me in the comments which myth I should tell next. Sleep well.